Did you get what you came here for? Did you come to start?
They'll be like, oh man, I program drums at home, but it doesn't sound like that. Why? Because, it runs through our system. When we don't have access to that, or if we're just choosing to do something in the box because we like the sound of it for a given mix, how we do that thing and still manage to be completely stoked on the result. At the top of that rack, I think, is tape saturation and then a dangerous back EQ that's just very gentle filters.
Did you show the machine head?
So the hardware is in that picture. That's
okay,
correct.
Pull up Rick Carson's machine. This is a great time to talk about that.
Okay.
Segue from a segue.
Some secret sauce.
If Rick Carson made it, I know it's going to be good.
Dude, it's so good. And he was the one who told me about this, and I've been begging him to make a plugin of it forever so I can use it on my summing situation, and he just made it. It's not out yet. It's still in beta. What's it called?
MB Machine Head.
Sick.
It's a digital tape saturation box from the early 2000s. They are impossible to find, and the fact that Rick turned this into a plugin is a godsend, and it sounds incredible. We're going to make adjustments to the two bus because this was slapped on after the fact to substitute for the hardware, but it's going to go through this guy. It's going to go through a set of filters. We have the hardware, like the literal hardware equivalent of that. This is a trick that I will show later. It is the only thing that we will automate on the master bus. This is a widener just for the choruses.
Eric Valentine.
Hey,
Borrowed.
I use that myself.
Let's go.
It's one of the only tricks that I think in the context of a rock mix works literally every time. It's better every single time I put it on.
You automate up the sides a dB on the chorus. So traditionally you just bump up the volume a little bit, but the problem is it doesn't always get bigger because sometimes you're digging into your compressor harder or your limiter depending on where you're doing it. But this kind of bows out your sides and just, gives you that apparent volume without really turning anything up.
Well, okay. So in addition to that though, Joel, remember what I was talking about earlier is I mentioned bumping up of the master bus before the limiter, but after the compressor. So that's why it's good sometimes to have those two options, because like you said, yeah, if you bump up the all bus, which is prior to the compressor, yes, you're right. You're going to fuck up your compressor settings if you already are hitting it pretty hard. But that's a workaround for that. If you do want that extra volume, just put your limiter on a separate bus so you have a little bit of flexibility with that.
And actually, I'm going to put it after the compressor because I typically do in the box. But I'm going to play.
How do we do that analog? I can't remember. Do we do it?
I do it on my print tracks.
We do it before everything, typically.
We do it before everything.
So it doesn't stress out the compressor because the only thing that's giving more information is just the sides, and that's typically wide guitars, wide overheads, room, stuff like that. And so it's just more excitement.
We should try it on the print track because Joel said it was good.
I'm going to stick it after the SSL bus compressor. So I'm going to play a bit of, last bar of the pre-chorus leading into the chorus.
Higher the wall, the harder you fall. Did you get what you came here for? Did you come to start a war? This game will kill you when you slip. Did you get... Okay, so I put that in write mode just so that I could show used automation, delete my squirrely points, and then come over here and I make sure my value is just 1 dB. There's this awesome mixer, Jeff Ellis, who works at East West. And he was talking about one of the things that we kind of lose in the box is the fact that analog has imperfections between left and right channels of whatever. So you get natural width, but as a consequence, more stereo information comes off as more mono. So doing a move like this in the box is actually going to make it feel, more analog in the abstract because you're simulating the width and the difference that you get from, say a summing mixer or something where the amplifier stage is just a little bit different on the left and the right. So this is something that can, it's subtle. So I'll play the automation now. Higher the wall, the harder you fall. Did you get what you came here for? Did you come to start a war? This game. It just slaps a little harder. I'm gonna get into nitty gritty stuff. This soothe setting is something that we had prior to the hardware chain as we were working on it. It just takes super low 808s or bass drops and stuff and kind of, keeps them in check. It's just a little nugget that pops down. Higher the wall, the harder you fall. Did you get what you came here for? Did you come to start a war? Not much at all, but, helps in the long run. Bus compressor, Dr. Dre setting, cross-eyed, 30 millisecond attack, and 0.1 release.
4-1. And then the thing that varies is the sidechain filter. And that's ultimately going to determine how much of your kick drum is pumping your entire mix, or 808 or whatever you have going on. So I'll exaggerate that real fast. So typically for us, this lives between like 70 and 90. Depends on like how subby the kick drum is and whatever, but right around yonder sounded pretty good on this one. So next in the hardware chain is a set of transformers. Joel, you have a pair also.
I do, and I love them.
Focusrite red
I
transformers.
forget that they're in there because they're like block transformers in the.
Yeah, they're just hanging out in the back there. So
For those of you who don't know, it's like a box with an XLR hanging off of it. And it's just like right off the Focusrite consoles. You know what I mean? Like it's not, it's like you literally go into your hardware box and you pull out the transformer and you wire it to an XLR.
So
Thanks, Rick Carson.
Thank you, Based Rick.
Rick Carson.
The closest thing that we have come up with to that is Kazrog True Iron, which is literally just a transformer emulation. The 111C, which is like a Western Electric, like Sylvia Massey thing. That one, to my ear, sounds the best on a 2-bus, but you can experiment with whatever. The plugin rules. It's very, very cool. To emulate the exact hardware, this is the exact setting that we had on the hardware curve bender also. So
That EQ is phenomenal. The hardware and the plugin, like wow.
Secret Weapon on guitars also, but for now it's going to live on this 2-bus. So we are people of 50 hertz shelf and 12K shelves, and then just ducking a little mid-range and adding some of that nicer mid-range than 500. We don't have an A&M prototype mastering EQ plugin version, but we have the Sontec, which is arguably better.
Definitely.
This is.
You mean better than the A&M EQ? It's hard to say.
Yeah, they're different, but for my money, this is the greatest plug-in equalizer ever made.
Agree.
This thing is out of control.
Another Rick Carson invention development.
The setting on the A&M EQ is a shelf at 50 and a shelf at 12 also. So we're just getting more of that. It's just a different curve. It's a different cue. It has a different quality, but it's just a little bit of weight and a little bit of that sparkly stuff. Another thing that has kind of allowed us to transition more in the box is this guy, the God Particle.
The Jason Joshua by Cradle Audio.
Yeah, very, very cool plugin. If you hit the meters the way that you're supposed to, it will reward you. It's doing some multi-band stuff. It's doing a lot of stuff under the hood. If this is at 100%, it's doing quite a bit of SSL style compression anyway.
Yeah, which you don't need.
Yeah, so we keep it closer to 50%, sometimes less, because we're already getting the pumpy quality that we want off of this.
That plugin is really designed to sort of be like a one-trick pony. Like just put one plugin on your master bus. That would be the one, that kind of thing. So you got to be real careful with it because it does get heavy-handed if you're already saucing your stuff up.
Yeah. And it's worth mentioning the limiter is cool for, 808 based music. We typically don't for rock music, but there's exceptions to that also. We'll get into limiter stuff as we approach the end of this session. I'm going to play our mix and then I'm going to play what we submitted to Chris Athens for mastering.
Did you get what you came here for? Did you come to start a war?
Here comes the ref.
Well, hell yeah, when you say, did you get what you came here for? Did you come to start a
Pretty close.
It's a little different. We could finesse things to get it closer if that's the true objective, is to match something that we've already done. But to my ears, the in the box mix sounds very good. So it's like they're going to be different.
There's a little bit of stereo quality stuff that only can really be done, I think, with okay. So there's also one thing that we haven't talked about, which is on the master bus, which is a big part of the sound actually, is the silk knob.
Yes.
Which is a Jensen style transformer on the Neve 5060 over there.
That guy right there.
I don't know if you guys could see that or not. They make 500 series of this.
They do.
But yeah, it's just basically just a transformer with a drive knob on it essentially. And there's two different, or is it two different ones? There's two different ones.
Yeah, there's a red and a blue.
The red and the blue. The red one is the Neve proprietary one. I found we used to use that. We definitely use the red one on this mix because since then I've decided the blue is a little bit softer and better. But the red one's a little bit more forward sounding. It's a little more aggressive maybe, which I thought was cool for a long time. But the more I do it, the more I prefer the germanium Jensen transformer.
Yeah, and For reference, that knob will live anywhere between noon and like 3 o'clock.
Yep.
For us. So it, saturating and then saturating and then saturating through transformers, through silk transformers, through the output stage of the 5060. It's getting hit a whole bunch of different times.
That's been sort of the MO, I think, is not hitting any one compressor or limiter or transformer too hard, and just real subtle stuff into, because some people will look at my master bus and be like, dude, that's so many plugins, and it's like, it's really not doing a whole lot,
Yeah, I mean, if we look, the Sontec is doing like a half dB.
Yeah.
You want to maybe give
Very
them
subtle.
a before and after where you
Sure.
bypass all the inserts?
It's worth mentioning, we will never listen to this song like this because we have it on all the time.
Well, we have most of it all the time.
Yeah.
Not sometimes I'll turn the EQs off, sometimes definitely turn the limiters off. Sometimes we don't even have any mastering limiters on there, but
That's right.
sometimes we'll turn but almost always, like I know a lot of times when I'm starting the mix, I'll turn off all the EQ stuff, but it almost always has the machine head box on or the whatever vinyl plugin we're trying to use, and then an SSL compressor.
I actually don't know what this is going to sound like, but
Like shit, probably.
all right.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And here it comes.
I mean, it's worth mentioning though that this song was already like kind of dense and
Yes.
this is one of those records that just like already sounds good, I guess, just tracks up with nothing on it.
So because we don't have the limiting stages on this, pleasantly surprised, there's not a huge level difference between the two. It's just like a tighter version of it. There's compression gluing things together, and then after it's glued together, it's kind of inflated again on either side with the low end that you can lose from that kind of thing. The only thing kind of left to dial is this tape plugin, which is very, very cool. I'm going to make sure that I'm hitting the meters at a reasonable level.
Higher the wall, the harder you fall. Did you get what you came here for? Did you come to start a war? This game will
those the same settings?
kill you when you slip. Did you get what you came here for? Did you come to start a war?
Are those the same settings we have on the hardware? Right?
They're not, but the gain staging is different. Let me
See if you can dial it in the same way that we have it set down there.
This thing doesn't sound like tape,
It doesn't.
like at all. It does something completely different. It's made to be a tape simulator, but the thing that it does to the high end, it just makes it sound expensive and awesome.
There's also a little bit at this setting, there's a little bit of low compression, like low end compression that happens, and it's very subtle. It's like a 0.5 dB, like 60 hertz or something. Rick was telling me about it, but it does something to the low end that then gives the aliasing of the high end to sort of the alias harmonics more room to breathe.
Did you get what you came here for? Did you come to start a war? This game will kill you when you slip. Did you get what you came here for? Did you come?
Yeah, I mean, they're similar.
Yeah,
I can hear a difference a little bit.
I think I do still prefer the hardware version, but the difference between having
They did a
this and
great
not-
job.
Yeah, of having this and not having it, like I will praise Rick and his team every day.
Let's hear it without it completely.
Yeah.
Did you get what you came here for? Did you
And then
come
flip
to
it on.
start a war? This game
Comes Rick.
will
Yep.
kill you.
Yeah, all day.
All day.
Did you get what you came here for?
All day.